some of the ladies over there on The View, that lovely show, which miraculously is still on the air. I'm still waiting for it to go off. And I think actually every day it gets closer and closer. They did have a little bit of a dispute and a disagreement because they don't necessarily see things the way I do vis-a-vis Jasmine Crockett and the ridiculousness of trying to take out any doctor, Epstein, that you can find out of thin air and somehow say that the Republicans were getting money from him too. Woo, okay. And Sunny Houston, however you say her name, I don't really care. She's just got one viewpoint and one viewpoint only, and she's sticking to her story regardless of the facts. Watch.
Abuse of children.
When she said, my team looked into this quickly, when you're going to throw out an accusation that big, which we all know this case is that big, just own it, say it was a mistake, and move on, because to then try to say, well, they lie and we don't lie, again, it's the distrust in Congress and our politicians.
But the bottom line is, and you've said this before, Sarah, this is not a partisan issue. This is not a
right, but I'm
political
speaking
issue.
purely to don't sling an accusation out on the congressional floor and not dial it back quickly, abruptly say, I got it wrong, and move on, because it isn't political. It's criminal.
Correct.
Oh my gosh, I actually agree with somebody on The View. Imagine that. But they're all ganging up on her. They're all mad. They're like, it was totally fine for her to say this. I mean, you understand the hypocrisy in these people. Like, I mean, just call it out. Like, you don't have to be so blatantly political. I'm sorry, Sonny, or Whoopi, who still thinks it would be better to be a gay black woman in Iran today than to be a gay black woman in the US of A today. Okay, you keep going with that, and I encourage you to move there one day. Kind of test out that theory for yourself. So The View is clearly struggling. I think, we've talked about that at length, and their ratings are not what they once were. Their hosts, shall we say, are not what they once were. In fact, one of them, Joy Behar, has been trying to sell her home. I don't know if she eventually sold it, but she wanted a pretty penny for that little tiny salt box in Sag Harbor out there in the Hamptons. I think like $10 million. Well, she must see the handwriting on the wall, right? She knows what's coming, because I think she's almost trying to dig herself in and trying to end her career. Because I want you to hear what she said. Remember, this is a kind of highly litigious president who's already put ABC News on warning repeatedly, including as recently as this week. And yet Joy Behar goes on to say this.
I think we're going to hear
something. But isn't it obvious that that Trump was involved with Epstein? I mean, there are more pictures of him with Epstein than pictures of Kim Kardashian of herself.
Yes.
Right. But listen, how many more things do we have to see before people believe that he was involved with Epstein?
Is this supposed to be a joke? Not that funny. Okay, or the Kim Kardashian thing. I think she's used that one before, actually. I feel like I've heard that before. So poor Joy, who's, trying to sell her home. Good luck. Hey, but maybe she'll be just fine. I hear everybody wants to move out of New York City right about now. So good luck. Joy, you may actually get a pretty penny for that. And it has a lot to do with Mamdani and socialism, communism, more than anything else. But I think that saying things, frankly, like this on that show in this particular time is now getting really dicey. And I say that as a full supporter of the First Amendment. You know that. But I'm also recognizing, back in the day when I worked at network television and I worked in, for broadcast news, we actually had a responsibility to try to show you both sides and to try to be, quote unquote, fair and balanced, as Fox was fond of saying, because you had a duty to your community. This goes back to the FCC and the original Communications Act of 1934. And there's another thing called the News Distortion Act that we've talked about here on the show of 1949, where you can't actually deliberately distort the news. And that sounds to me, when she's saying, he had something to do with him, that sounds to me like a deliberate distortion of the news, similar to what we saw Georgie do. Remember when he wound up having to pay $16 million, or his network did, to Donald Trump in that libel suit that they had. So this is not good timing. It's not good timing because we already heard Donald Trump, like 48 hours prior, put ABC News on notice. ABC News is the producer of The View, again, on a broadcast network, not YouTube, not cable, broadcast. Take a look at the president's warning.
Wise to your hoax, and ABC's your company, your crappy company, is one of the perpetrators. And I'll tell you something. I think the license should be taken away from ABC because your news is so fake and it's so wrong. And we have a great commissioner, the chairman, who should look at that, because I think when you come in and when you're 97% negative to Trump and then Trump wins the election in a landslide, that means obviously your news is not credible and you're not credible as a reporter. So I've answered your question. You should go and look at the Democrats who received money from Epstein, who spent their time. Larry Summers was with him all the time. That creep, the fund guy, was with him all the time. What's his name? Who? Reid Hoffman. I don't know Reid Hoffman, but I know he spends a lot of money on the radical left. Reid Hoffman, in my opinion, should be under investigation. He's a sleazebag. And those are the people, but they don't get any press, they don't get any news, and you're not after the radical left because you're a radical left network. But I think the way you ask a question with the anger and the meanness is terrible. You ought to go back and learn how to be a reporter. No more questions from you. Who else has a question?
All right. Okay, by the way, he signed on last night to the bill, so the documents are going to come out in 30 days. We're going to talk a little bit more about that and what Pam Bondi is saying. But look, ABC, like, this is not the time to have Joy Behar out there saying what she's saying. I mean, I guess Whoopi's on vacation this week. They're probably all like, whew, thank goodness we didn't have her here today. Yeah, this is getting ugly, meanwhile, because you heard the president say, This is nothing to do with MAGA and everything to do with the Democrats. The majority of the funding that Epstein was donating or giving out was all going to Democrats. I mean, there will be casualties along the way. Larry Summers, the former Treasury Secretary. Also, he worked for both Clinton and Obama. He was the head of the National Economic Council as well. So he had some big jobs. He was also at one point president of Harvard University. He was buddy-buddy. Like, he was getting lady advice from Jeffrey Epstein. Well, he had to open his class at Harvard this morning. The kids are talking about it, like, point of view. When your Harvard professor says this, watch. So the kids at Harvard had quite a statement from Larry Summers today. This is how the guy who appeared in the Epstein files opened his class.
Some of you will have seen my statement of regret, expressing my shame with respect to what I did in communication with Mr. Epstein, and that I've said that I'm going to step back from public activities for a time, but that I think it's very important to fulfill my teaching obligations.
There are going to be a lot of people with a lot of emails that they wish they had never written. Yep. Okay, like a lot of people.